We're going to start with Lorraine.
Oh, okay, thanks.
All right. I think I'll begin the meeting then. Okay. Good morning, everybody. I'm Elaine Chapnick, president of the Larchmont Mamaroneck Local Summit, welcoming you to this snowy February meeting. The igloos all over town actually look very appropriate these days, surrounded by the layers of snow we've been receiving these past several weeks. But in addition to the snow, we've also seen new stores open, new construction begin in our community. Many things are happening. Here today to talk about what is currently taking place and what is being planned for the future, we have our key locally elected officials. I'll turn the program over to today's chair, Peggy Jackson, who will introduce them. Peggy.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us, and thank you, LMC. This is a follow-up. Our last program was our state and county officials, so we thought it was a natural progression to move into our local officials. So thank you, Lorraine Walsh, thank you, Nancy Seligson, and thank you, Tom Murphy, for joining us. And Lorraine, we're just going to kick it off right with you, if you want to give us an idea of what's going on in the communities these days.
All right, great. Thank you. And thank you to the Summit and to LMC TV for providing this forum for us to communicate. I'll start off with COVID because that's the reason we're doing it via Zoom and not sitting at the Nautilus enjoying a breakfast. So I'm sure everyone is aware that right now the levels of cases, while they have over the very recent past started to decline, are still at very high levels. So in the village of Larchmont, December had more cases than November, January had more cases than December, and the number of new cases in the month of January in Larchmont were more than 3 times that of the highest previous month, which was at the beginning of the pandemic. So we all just have to remember to follow the protocols, keep wearing masks, socially distance, and wash your hands. I did send out information about trying to get a vaccine, get an appointment for a vaccine. I'm not going to belabor that because it's really all over the news, but if anyone has questions at the end, we can certainly address that. I'll move on then to the effect that COVID has had on the village budget. We were lucky enough to have forewarning the pandemic and the shutdowns hit in March, just as we were about to approve the next fiscal year budget. So we made some changes to that. That helped us weather the storm a little bit better. But at this point, we still are showing about a $440,000 shortfall in revenue. And we don't yet know exactly where we're going to end up at the end of the year. That a lot of that depends on how our expenses go from now till the end of May. So far, they're pretty good, and we are in a fairly decent position. But of course, we didn't anticipate all these enormous snowstorms. So that adds to our overtime and our costs. But I think that we probably will be in, at the end of the year, in a position to only need to use a little bit of surplus, perhaps no more than $100,000 to balance the budget. And we're just starting. We had last night our first budget meeting for the next fiscal year. And the villages, the fiscal year starts June 1st. So now we're looking forward and we're trying to put on our magical hats and figure out what's the world going to be like over the next year. What events can we have? What revenue will we be bringing in? And it's going to be a long and difficult process. We're also just about at the point of being able to deliver to the community a draft police reform and reinvention collaborative plan. We hope to have that out to the community in the first week of March for their review, and then we'll hold a hearing to receive comments. And then that plan needs to be adopted by the village board, and a certification of that adoption needs to be sent to the state no later than April 1st. And we are on track for that. The committee made up of many volunteers from the community, the police department, the religious community in the village have been working together over the last couple of months to review lots of different issues, community policing, policies, training, et cetera, to come up with this outline of a plan. I know that you mentioned, Elaine, the dining igloos and the building and the downtown. So I'll move to what is usually my favorite topic, which is to talk about downtown. We do have 2 new buildings, which are in the midst of being, or about to be constructed and in the midst of being constructed. One of them is actually a replacement for the building that burned down 4 years ago. It had a couple of delays. It has finally really picked up the pace. If you could see behind the plywood, you would see that they have finished the basement. The elevator shaft, Tom, is up to the 2nd floor. The steel is up to the 2nd floor, and the ground floor cement has been laid. So we're in a good position. Unfortunately, I'm sure the snow slows them down a bit working in that tight area. But you're going to start to see it rising pretty quickly. And then there's the building, the new building, Centro on Chatsworth Avenue, where the former Food Horizon had been. That building was demolished, and the foundation work will be starting soon on a new 14-unit condominium apartment building with a ground floor retail. I'm very excited about it because I think aesthetically it's going to be a real pick-me-up to that section of the streetscape. It's also going to be great to have more people living in the downtown, which enlivens the foot traffic and makes it just feel that much more vital. Having new modern retail space is also going to allow for an exciting, perhaps, hopefully, an exciting business opportunity to come in. And another great feature of that building is that it's going to have a very nice pedestrian access way, which connects Chatsworth Avenue to the public municipal lot on Went Avenue. So again, it makes the whole connection between people coming, parking, coming through, going shopping, and circulating around the village much easier. And then we have supported our restaurants all summer and spring and fall, and now into the winter. And remarkably, we had our fingers crossed. We really didn't know how this was going to work out, but it has worked out very, very well. We've only had one mishap with a greenhouse where a snow tornado picked it up and threw it into the street. But other than that, they're holding up really well. They're getting great use. The restaurant owners are telling us that the ability to have additional capacity throughout this time is what has actually, really saved them, and they're very excited about that. They're very careful about the protocols that they have to follow, and also very careful about taking care of cleaning the sidewalks around them and making sure that they're safe, because they're so appreciative of having the opportunity to do that. We're going to be implementing at long last the recommendations of the Village's Comprehensive Parking Study, which was completed in 2018. We originally were going to be implementing it almost a year ago, and then COVID hit. We kind of put it on the back burner for a short while. It just made it very difficult to coordinate all the things we had to do in order to get that started. We have issued a bond for the purchase of multi-space pay stations, most of which are going to be solar powered and will be placed on sidewalks and in parking lots around the village. We have purchased a license plate reader. We will be purchasing an electric enforcement vehicle. And those pay stations will be installed beginning at the end of March and through April. We also have a parking app, so people can download it's Passport, can download that app and pay through an app. And we're very excited about finally getting this going. Now, the board did this with a lot of forethought and attention. We have had multiple public meetings on this topic. We have spent 2 years talking with business owners and with the Chamber of Commerce, Traffic Commission, and the Police Department. And also, we are going to be creating a special revenue fund through which the revenue and expenses of this new franchise for us flow so that we can really keep careful track of how it's doing, and take that money and earmark it for reinvestment into capital projects in the downtown, such as the redesign of some of our parking lots, which haven't seen redesign probably in some of them 40, 50, 60 years, and certainly haven't even seen some basic levels of maintenance for quite a long time. So that's a really great opportunity for us to have a tangible, visible outcome from paid parking to improvements to infrastructure that relates to transportation, and that's transportation not just by vehicles but also by feet and bicycles as well. And I think that's probably a good wrap up, except for I want to say that Summit member Malcolm Froman, who is also the president of the Hunger Task Force and is also a very valuable trustee in the Village of Larchmont, has chosen not to run for re-election in November, and as a matter of fact has chosen to leave early. We changed the dates of village elections in Larchmont from March to November. We did that in September at with a referendum. So he would have been ending this March, and so he has decided that was his timeline. And we thank him so much. He's been a wonderful trustee. I will be appointing Bridget Brennan, who I'm sure many of you probably know, a longtime resident and volunteer for the village and for many local community organizations, the Junior League, St. Augustine's, PTA, etc. She will be appointed to replace him for his term, and she has indicated her intention to run in November for the seat, for the full term of that seat. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to pivot to Tom because Tom's at work and I know his time is limited. So Tom, why don't you go next?
Thank you. I'm sorry I was tardy. Give you a brief outline of the many things that are going on in the Village of Mamaroneck. The village manager has introduced his budget, which is $600,000 under the tax cap. It now has to go through the process of being vetted by both the Board of Trustees and the Budget Committee. So I'm fairly confident that we're going to be under the tax cap. We have to see what needs to be put back in. Maybe something else needs to be taken out. The budget process is a long and arduous process. I think we have set 7 or 8 meetings, meeting with each department head to get their input and to get their feedback on what they need to do their job effectively. All department heads were asked by the village manager for a 10% cut. We're very cognizant of the fact that many people in our community are struggling due to the effects of COVID and the ramp down in the economy. So we're trying to go gingerly. And while I wish there would be never any tax increase, we're trying to keep the tax increase that needs to happen to a minimum. We've been working hard with the Police Reform and Reinvention Committee. They have come up with some draft proposals. I think they were going to meet at least one more time to try and fine tune those proposals. We have a meeting with them and the village board scheduled in the next coming weeks to work on that. And as Lorraine said, we have to have it done before April 1st, which has been, a big chore in the middle of COVID. And I think it's something that it's good and it needed to be done. But I think when the executive order was issued, nobody was envisioning that we'd still be doing all of our work on Zoom, which makes it more problematic to work in a group of 15 people when everybody is on Zoom. But we're doing it. There are a lot of strong opinions. The village of Mamaroneck is a very diverse place. That there have been issues in the past. Some of those issues have been brought up and addressed. Some need more addressing, but we want to face our problems squarely, and we want to move ahead with a community that feels welcoming and feels nurturing to everybody that lives in the community. We have an excellent police force who I believe is trying to administer the laws even-handedly. We want to make sure that the residents feel that that is the case. So we're working on that. And that's a very important initiative. Another thing that's happening is because of what's happened during COVID, we all feel, especially in a village, a deep debt of gratitude to the municipal employees and volunteers. We have an all-volunteer fire department in the village of Mamaroneck who have kept this community going during the time of COVID, who have, put their own personal safety at risk, who have, gone into dangerous situations not knowing what they were going to face in terms of this disease and the possibility of bringing that disease home to their family and to their children. And I think we need to recognize that. So I proposed that we have some sort of tribute to our municipal workers and what they've done in this past year. And we sent the idea to the Arts Council, and they greatly improved on the outline of an idea that I have. And they have proposed, and the village board last night accepted the concept of a living tribute of kind of a grove or a memorial garden to honor what our municipal employees and volunteers have done in this past year and the contribution they have made and the sacrifices they have made. And I think that it'll be nice when we can all go together and have that unveiling in person and see each other one-on-one. That being said, even though it has been a rough year in terms of having to deal with the stresses that we all feel individually, but we also feel as a community, there have been improvements, in village life. The village has worked on improving our parks. For the first time in history, we've installed swings in Columbus Park. Columbus Park, as some of you might know, is in Washingtonville, and it is the only community park, the only neighborhood park, my mistake, the only neighborhood park that didn't have swing sets. And when this was pointed out to us, it's a glaring omission. What kid doesn't like to swing? We set in motion the installation of 2 sets of swings, and it was paid for through a program that was developed when I was a trustee, that a recreation fee that was charged to all new developments in the community, $8,500. If you were putting in a new unit in the village of Mamaroneck, there was an $8,500 fee. So in the time I left until last year, I then found out that there's $400,000 that has accrued into that account that had never been touched. So we immediately used the money to improve Columbus Park. And, there's an item on the agenda now to see what other parks we can improve with that money, what else we can do to enhance recreational opportunities for the children and for the adults of this community. One of the main things that the village of Mamaroneck, because of our diversity and because we have a large population that lives under the poverty level, we had to make sure during this time that all of our residents had the nutrition that they needed to get through the crisis that we were all in. When this first started in March, I said one of the goals of the village of Mamaroneck should be that no child in the village of Mamaroneck ever goes to bed hungry during this. And with the help of scores and scores of volunteers and the generosity of hundreds of people, not just in the village of Mamaroneck, but within the tri-municipal area, I believe that that goal has been fulfilled. The Village of Mamaroneck has given over one of our parking lots in Columbus Park solely to the effort of feeding folks that need a hand during this crisis. And there's been a huge growth in the demand. But I'm happy to report that that demand has been met with, generosity and love and the caring of this community. And it's been a privilege to be able to watch this. Hopefully someday we will live in a society where hunger doesn't have to be met with generosity. It'll be met through actions of the government to make sure that everybody has a job, to make sure that everybody has equal opportunity. But until that happens, I do appreciate the support of so many people who are watching here and who have given their time, and given their energy, and given their money to make this a reality. And on that note, I would really like to thank Malcolm Furman. Malcolm is a trustee in Larchmont, as Mayor Walsh pointed out. But I'll tell you, the Village of Mamaroneck and the people of the Village of Mamaroneck owe Malcolm a real debt. He has been at the forefront. The Larchmont Mamaroneck Hunger Task Force, along with the Coalition for Communities, sprang into action, and every problem that they faced, they brainstormed, they got in contact with us in the village. And they pushed us to do more and more, and I appreciate the push, and it has really been effective. There are many things going on in the Village of Mamaroneck as usual. We passed a law recently that goes back to that recreation fee that I talked about, and if you are building a development that is all affordable, in other words, every unit is an affordable unit, then that recreation fee will either be waived or discounted in some manner. And I think the challenge going forward in the Village of Mamaroneck, because we talk a lot about our diversity, and it is a strength, but it is something that needs to be nurtured, or it's not going to be there. We need to work on having workforce housing. We need to work on having housing for a diverse economic group that we represent. And, I'm hoping to work on that in the future. I think it is paramount to keeping the Village of Mamaroneck the community that we all love and have known. There's too many folks who are getting priced out. There's too many folks who we need in this community who do the hard work and who deserve a decent place to live. And I think that's what we need to focus on in the future. But one of the hard things about municipal government, and this is what I tell people who are new to the process and who are first in office, you try and focus on getting one or two things done a year, because there's going to be 4 or 5 things you don't expect that are going to happen, that you're going to have to deal with, and it's going to monopolize your time. So what I'd like to work on in the future is improving the housing stock for those people at the lowest end of the economic spectrum. So that's a snapshot of what is going on in the Village of Mamaroneck right now. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you all. I don't know if it's started to snow yet, because there are no windows where I work, but no, okay, I hear it's not. But stay safe, and I'll stay on the line as long as I can.
Thanks, Tom. Nancy, we'll pivot to you.
Okay, thank you, Peggy. Thank you, Summit. Good morning, everyone. The town of Mamaroneck is in full swing as usual. And I'm going to start off by giving a little synopsis of the coronavirus situation we've all endured. In the town, we've had a total of 680 cases since the beginning of the pandemic. We currently have 56 active cases in the town, which is down about half of what it was a few weeks ago. So as Lorraine mentioned, there is a decrease in the spike that we were seeing, but it's still a virulent disease out there. And we want to remind everyone to wear their masks, wash their hands, don't gather in large social groups, and keep your social distance. I'm pleased to report that the town of Mamaroneck continued government services throughout the pandemic and still has. We were able to open the pool to the public. It's open 4 days a week for certain hours. And it has a limit on the amount of people, of course, that can use it, but it is open. And we've also been able to open the rink, the ice rink, for different hockey groups and some figure skating, but it's also limited. And unfortunately, it's not open to the public yet. Our recreation department pivoted and did a great job in changing from its regularly scheduled programs to very different kinds of programs, creative programs, online programs, smaller programs, but we were able to do that. Moving over to the budget, the town of Mamaroneck has a fiscal year that coincides with the calendar year, which is very different than the villages that you just heard about. So we passed our 2021 budget at the end of December, and there is a increase in the tax levy of 1.46%, which is a very low increase, and below the tax cap, which was allowed 2.2%. It is a difficult time to budget in the coronavirus pandemic because the future is so unknown as to what's going to happen with your revenues and your expenses. But we did see a tremendous decrease in revenues last year. Fortunately, it coincided with a large decrease in expenses as well, but they weren't on par. So we have to plan conservatively, and we are looking at this year planning that the first 6 months of the year will be very similar to last year, and then there should be some more opening up in economic activities and revenues starting in the second half of the year. We have two really big efforts that are going to start, well, actually they have started for 2021 in the town of Mamaroneck. One is, yes, we are going to do the comprehensive plan update. We have been talking about it for a long time. It was supposed to start last year at this time, but unfortunately, coronavirus took over and we decided to delay it for a year. So now we are kicking into gear. We're working with the consultants, AKRF, and we have named a steering committee who we will be introducing at our February 17th town board meeting. And the consultants have started to work on some of the background information on the town so that we are poised to reach out to the public and begin our public engagement efforts in early April. And I'm very excited about that because what is most important is getting your input, the public's input, as to what they value in the town and what you want to see as the vision for the community. What do you see in the future for the town of Mamaroneck? What do you want to see protected now or changed? And we're going to be reaching out to folks in all different ways. You know, we had hoped to have some really large gatherings and bringing people together. That is not going to happen, not going to be able to happen, but we will be able to use a lot of different ways of social media and outreach to reach people and bring them in. So please look for those announcements. We really want to have everyone participate. It's the most important part of the comprehensive planning process. We are looking to ask questions and focus on recreation, housing, community character, mobility, which means transportation, and mobility is a term to use so that people think more than just cars. You know, how do you get around? What are the connections of how to get around? And of course, sustainability. We all have to face that climate change is upon us, and we all have a responsibility and an opportunity in this time to make a difference on the sustainability front. The state of New York has very ambitious goals and targets for reducing our emissions and greenhouse gases, and all municipalities are going to have to look to ways that they can comply with that law and that they can show that they're reducing their energy emissions and greenhouse gases as well. The other issue within the comprehensive plan that's so important and that we're going to start focusing on early is something called floor area ratio. And it's one of the ways that is a zoning tool that helps us manage the scale and size of development, of particular sizes of developments in the community. We have spent years studying it before, many years ago, but we think it is time to review it again because we have had a lot of feedback from folks that they are unhappy with what they see as with tear downs happening and then much larger houses going up. So the FAR is something we're going to look at early in the comprehensive planning process, along with other tools and mechanisms to try and address that issue. The other really big effort that's going on and has already started is that we are in the process of searching for a new town administrator to replace Steve Altieri. Now, Steve Altieri has been the only town administrator in the town of Mamaroneck. He was the first one ever hired, and he's been there for 38 years. So Steve has an incredible knowledge of the town of Mamaroneck, created this position, and is widely known as one of the best municipal managers in the state. So we are very sorry to lose him. He has been absolutely wonderful and has made sure that Mamaroneck town is the best that it can be throughout his whole career. But he has said he's leaving. And, you know, we've tried everything we can to make him stay. We looked into the law. He's allowed to leave. So we are going to have to, and are in the process of looking for a replacement. Sabrina Fiddleman and Jane Elkanini, council women, are on the search committee with me. And we're working with a consultant. We're doing a nationwide search. The job posting is out there. It is on our town website, and it is going around to every community, I believe in the Northeast, as well as many other platforms to attract a great candidate. So we're looking forward to this process, and we are planning to be interviewing people beginning in April. So that's very exciting and a big change for the town. I'll also mention that the town has a racial equity task force chaired by Jeff King, our councilman. And they also are working on the police reform report that Lorraine and Tom mentioned. All municipalities with police departments are required to create this report and submit it to the governor by April 1st. We have had one public meeting on it, and the staff of the town and the racial equity task force with the police department have been working on it. We plan to have one other public hearing for comments on the draft plan, which will be in March. And the important thing also about our racial equity task force is that they plan to continue their work. It's not just for the purposes of this report. And their mission really is to foster a greater equity for all people in the town of Mamaroneck, to evaluate all the practices and services and engage the community in discussion to raise awareness about equity issues in the town, and to improve all of the practices and to improve all of the inequities that we may have in our community. So I'm really looking forward to continuing to work with them and engaging the public and really changing the situation in our communities. I think that people have really risen to the occasion, have recognized that inequalities exist and that we've got to and want to do differently. We also have a few other things going on for 2021, and we are looking forward to a redesign of our website, which would come out in this probably third or fourth quarter of this year. We are working with the Village of Mamaroneck, the Village of Larchmont, the Village of Pelham Manor, and the City of New Rochelle looking at a possible sewer consolidation, which is something that we've been working on for a long time with the county. The county has reached out and put out a request for proposals for a consultant to come in and study the possibility of consolidating the sewers in our 4 communities, as well as consolidating sewers countywide. This is something that could greatly benefit our communities and the environment, because it will create one owner and maintainer of the sewer systems. Right now, it really is divided among 3 entities, because the counties run the trunk lines and the sewer treatment plants. The communities run the lateral lines that connect homes to those trunk lines. And homeowners, of course, own their own lines that go out to the lateral lines. That's 3 different owners for the same system. So we're hoping that the consolidation study will show that the benefits to the system and the financial benefits by creating a larger group of folks to take on all of the expense of those efforts will be a great benefit going forward. We're looking to do some major improvements to the area of Madison Avenue and 5th Avenue. I know that sounds like New York City, but it's town of Mamaroneck, and it's by the entrance to 95. We're looking to do some streetscape improvements, drainage improvements, green infrastructure, and a new street light there. That should start at the end of this year as well. And we have one other program I wanted to mention, or project, I should say, and that is a community solar project that's going to begin on the roof of the Hommocks Ice Rink. The town owns the Hommocks Ice Rink and has leased it to a solar contractor who's going to build solar panels on it. And that solar energy is going to be offered to residents of the town who are low and moderate income residents first, because the solar energy provides a 10% discount in your electricity charges. And this is a great project because it allows people who either live in apartments or have homes that can't handle solar panels, or for any other reason that people can't participate in some of these sustainability efforts, to participate and get the benefits of some sustainability initiatives. And the town of Mamaroneck will receive rent payments, lease payments, basically, for the roof of the Hommocks Ice Rink. So this project will be starting probably next month in terms of construction. And we're very excited about it because it's one of the first projects in the county to create community solar on a town-owned building. So those are some of the things that are going on in the town of Mamaroneck. We're looking forward to this year. We've got a lot to do, but I think things are looking good for all of us. And of course, I look forward to working with my sister municipalities in the village of Larchmont and the village of Mamaroneck.
Thank you, Nancy. We're going to open up questions to our audience. If you have a question, please raise your hand. We'll recognize you and your microphone will be open so that you can ask your questions. So does anyone have any questions they would like to ask?
We do have Ann Chodash has her hand raised, so I'll allow her to talk.
Thank you. I'm live.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I'm a math major, and while everyone's telling me how many cases of COVID we have in each location, I would like to know the population for each of the locations so that I can determine the percentage. So for example, having 50 cases in the town, is that the same as having 50 in the village of Larchmont or Mamaroneck? I don't think so. So could
No.
each of you tell me the population in each of in the 2
Yes.
villages of the town?
In the town of Mamaroneck, we're about 12,000 people.
Okay.
The village of Larchmont is about 6,400.
And the village of Mamaroneck? I can't hear him. He's muted. Oop. We lost him.
Now he'll do.
No, he'll come back.
Unmute.
I'm sorry, the village of Mamaroneck is around 19,000.
19,000. Okay, thank you very much.
And the total community is about 29,000.
Right, but all the numbers, have it broken down, the countywide.
Yes, they
thing,
do.
so I'd like to be able to have a percentage so I know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think it's Nancy. Nancy, can you talk about the changes in the garbage pickup? I think it's you, right? That would,
Well,
Cross off
Lorraine
the
and
note.
I,
or is it
I'll
you,
let
Lorraine? I
Nancy
don't
do
know.
that.
I've been getting these questions, so I thought I would ask.
okay, Lorraine and I are the commissioners for the Larchmont Mamaroneck Joint Garbage Commission.
Right.
It is a bi-municipal service for the town of Mamaroneck and village of Larchmont. And we recently, both boards in the village of Larchmont and the town of Mamaroneck passed a law to make permanent curbside pickup of garbage, which has been going on since the beginning of the pandemic. And that will provide benefits in terms of cost savings to the garbage commission, as well as protections to the employees of the garbage commission.
Are there going to be any exceptions for
Yes,
elderly?
yes, there are policies that are going into effect really in the next few weeks, where anyone over the 78 years old or older can request an exemption, or those folks with disabilities who in both cases don't have other people living in their homes who are able to bring the garbage to the curb. And if you go on our websites and onto or lmsanitation.org in the next few weeks, you will be able to fill out a simple form and submit it to the commission, and that will start the process.
Thank you.
Tom, can you speak to what's going on in the village of Mamaroneck, please, regarding garbage?
Last night we had a public hearing on curbside pickup, and we have delayed consideration of it until June so that we can get more information and talk about what the cost savings are and what the constrictions are for our residents. So it's still under advisement. I'm going to see what happens to Nancy and Lorraine.
Yeah, of course.
They get hung in effigy, we might demur.
Another question, since outdoor dining has been such a great success in our communities, is there a plan for post-COVID to continue it?
Yes, definitely. Actually, the section of Larchmont Avenue from the Grange to La Taqueria, where there have been wooden platforms installed, and right now there are igloos. That's a pilot for what we hope to be able to do in Larchmont going forward forever, in terms of using public space for little parklets and dining. And I think that I know some people complain that it takes parking away, but I think it greatly outweighs the loss of a parking space by the excitement it brings to the street, the people it brings to the village, not only to use the restaurant that's there, but also then to stroll around and shop in the retail. My observation is that since we implemented this very robust outdoor dining and use of public space policy, because we had classes in parks, we had a lot of sidewalk sales, etc. I think Larchmont Village has actually been seen more foot traffic and more vitality than it has for the several years prior. And thankfully, all of that foot traffic is wearing masks.
Tom?
The village of Mamaroneck has had outdoor dining for years. We will continue it. In the spring, we're going to, I'm assuming again, allow them to use the parking spaces in front of their restaurants. That worked out. Hopefully we can do it earlier. We have had sidewalk dining going back at least 10 years, and it's been a success. And I think that a lot of the vibrancy and the reason that we haven't experienced as many vacant storefronts is because, of the dining that the village offers. So yes, I think we'll have more of it going forward.
Terrific. Sean, do you have any other questions from our audience?
Yes, we have a few hands. Next up is Simon Marlowe. So Simon, if you just unmute yourself, you'll be able to talk.
Actually, I don't have a question, so it's nice to see my hand up on its own. I pass you back.
Well, good morning.
All right, next up, we have Janet Baer.
Okay, my question is a follow-up actually for the sanitation question. And that is, I know in Scarsdale, they've started picking up food scraps at the home. And we have a robust food scrap collection at Maxwell, whatever that's called. And the question is, has there been discussion about doing anything at home and going down to one garbage, one food scrap or anything like that?
Yeah, I'll take it, Nancy, and then you can chime in if I forget something. But thanks for the question, Janet. Nancy and I have been discussing how we can expand the food waste program for well over a year. Part of the impetus behind moving to curbside pickup is that it then allows us to have a little bit more flexibility, perhaps, with how we schedule crews, and moves us closer to the ability to add perhaps curbside pickup of food waste. But we have a couple of changes, I think, that are going to be coming over the next year in the operation of the Sanitation Commission. So stay tuned for that. But we are looking at expanding that program, potentially moving to once a week trash pickup, potentially alternating recycling. So we're looking at lots of opportunities for making that service more efficient, but also more environmentally sound.
Thank you.
Nancy, did I miss anything?
No, I think that's right.
Right.
Tom? Anything in the village?
We've talked about, one of the things that came up last night was to talk about possibly doing food waste pickup if we did the curbside recycling. And that might be a benefit that could be derived from doing the curbside pickup. But right now, the garbage is staying status quo.
Next question?
Or next up is Nina Riccio. Apologies if I'm mispronouncing the names.
Good morning. This question is really more for Tom. You mentioned in your remarks, I hope I'm coming through clearly. You mentioned in your remarks, you addressed that, the village of Mamaroneck does have a very diverse population and underserved in many ways. But the question I have is, given that many of them have transportation problems, is there any plan within the village to make it possible to set up some kind of site for COVID vaccines for those who are eligible that would be within a walking distance within the village to help those people who are challenged in that way? They don't have transportation, they don't have much money, and many of them have lost their jobs and incomes. So what, if any, plan do you have to help these people?
That's a good question. As of this moment, we don't have a plan. I know that the county has been talking about doing pop-up vaccination sites. I'm going to reach out to our county representatives about that. I think a lot of us have been reading articles lately, not just about people who are unemployed, but people who are employed, who are eligible for the shot, but because, they can't spend 4, 5, 6 hours on the phone
Right.
trying to get an appointment, they're kind of being shut out. And that is breaking down a lot of times on ethnic lines, right? So I think that both Governor Cuomo and the county is going to look to address that. I'm going to see if we can get on the forefront of that. It's a very good point. It's hard to get to county center. There's a bus, but that's problematic if you don't have a job and you don't have bus fare. So it would be nice to have something in the village of Mamaroneck. The problem with running these small municipalities is, we don't have a health department. You know what I mean? So you kind of trying to do makeshift on the fly health concern issues. So I'm going to reach out to the county and to the state. We have a very good contact with the state to see if there's something that we can do. And then when we get a time, perhaps we can get work through the nonprofits in the community to get the word out of when that time will be. But it's a very good point, and it is a glaring lack of health equity that many people are facing. And you're right, it is people in our community. And thank you for pointing it out. And I will see what we can do.
Can I just add something, Peggy?
On that, oh, sorry, Nancy.
No, go ahead, Nina. I was just going to say that
I was just gonna.
Sorry, go ahead.
Okay.
Lorraine. Oh, I thought it was Nina.
I was going to say that I had reached out a couple of weeks ago to our contact at the governor's office, offering a site in Larchmont for local distribution. He said that they were not yet at that point of being able to handle that. Mostly that has to do with the supply. Once the supply gets great enough that you can start to disperse it to lots of distribution points, I think they will be coming back to us to see where those opportunities might reside in each community.
I was just going to add that Tom's right. It's the governor and the Department of Health and the state level and the somewhat Department of Health and the county level, but all of the COVID decisions are being made at the executive level in the New York State government and in being interpreted by the county, who's helping us figure out how to survive all of this and what we can do to best help our residents. The county did ask us if there's any opportunity or possibility in our communities to locate or identify sites that could possibly be used as pop-ups or sites. I know Lorraine has offered, and I also offered to investigate looking at the senior center in the town. But it's really not anything that we get to control at all. And I do think the supply of the vaccine is the biggest limiting factor at this point.
If I may, a plug for LMC, the board had reached out to County Executive Latimer to say if there was a way we could use our brand new mobile van, perhaps with EMS, and go home to home to help vaccinate people, we'd be happy to try and work that out. And we heard back from the County Department of Health saying, great idea, they're just not ready to organize it, but it will be put on a list probably of things that are options.
I think when the distribution gets to the local drugstore chains, that will help with access as well, I think.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions?
Next up, we have Rodman Reef.
Good morning. Just a quick question about the outdoor dining in Larchmont and its effect on traffic. How do you plan to get the bus route that was on Chatsworth and temporarily move to Larchmont Avenue back to Chatsworth if outdoor dining continues.
Yeah, thanks, Rod. The change that we made in consultation, obviously, with Beeline and the county, at that point was considered, a temporary solution to a need. Going forward, we're going to have to work with them to see if there's a way to make a change that works for both the use of the parking lane, but also works for the users of the system. Because I know that at least one of those stops that got discontinued has been I think a little problematic for a couple of people. I'm sure we can find another stop that works better and provides that ability. But that definitely will be one of our considerations.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions, Sean?
Yes, next up we have a phone number, say 914-565.
Yeah, that's me, George Latimer. Just wanted to highlight in the last, hello everybody, good job, mayors, supervisors. Just wanted to highlight the county's role cooperatively on both of the last two issues with the Beeline bus route, where we will work with whatever the village thinks is the best way to chart this through the village, balancing the things that Lorraine just talked about. And on the pop-up centers, it is the state's decision. We know that right now we're still only vaccinating people within very small cohorts of the overall population. When we go to the overall population, and there will be pharmacies giving them out and so forth, but we're going to have pop-up centers in almost every municipality. And so even as the mayors and the supervisors have direct contact with the state, which is where the decisions are being made by the governor, we have a list that we intend to sit down with the state and say, here are all of the locations in Westchester County. And as I think Tom said very accurately, the local governments do not have a health department. So the reality is the county will probably have to staff any of those pop-up centers along with the state, although they'll be in municipal facilities. So we're working cooperatively, and forward we go.
We're lucky we have such a great partner at the county level. It really makes all of what we have to deal with this year a little bit easier.
It's true. I just have to add that everyone should know that we have a weekly call with the county with George Latimer running the call with all his staff to talk about the latest developments in the coronavirus issue with the state, with all of our municipalities. And it really is invaluable and helps us understand everything that's going on, interpret what's coming down from the state, and operationalize what we can in our communities.
John, any more?
We have Steve Otis.
Hey, Tom, Lorraine, and Nancy, you all do a great job, and another great summit. On the need for more localized vaccine locations, Shelley and I are on calls now 3 days a week with the state on these various COVID issues, and have certainly numerous occasions indicated that when they expand, they need to be thinking of the Sound Shore, and they've also said that when the supply increases, they're going to try and have larger locations. Well, we'll see whether that comes to pass. But one I've suggested is Harbor Island, because they set up these locations sometimes in big parking lots like Glen Island or Playland, and so that would be great. But I want to also spend the moment to congratulate Nancy, who's announced that she's not running for re-election, on a great service as supervisor of the town of Mamaroneck, and she has just been an outstanding leader and partner, as you all are. But also kudos to Malcolm, who hearing the news from Lorraine that he's leaving the village board. I'm hoping you still have a provision that he's going to continue to take photographs at all events.
Yeah, and he will continue to do all of our design work.
Oh, that's very good. And congratulations to Bridget Brennan. She'll be a great addition to the Larchmont Village Board. So love you all, love the summit, and another great show.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Steve.
Sean, anyone else?
I believe Ann Chodosh has raised her hand again.
Hi, going back on the vaccines, one of the pharmacies in Larchmont did have the vaccine. They have a list of names. The first week they got 200. The second week, suddenly they only got 100. And I called them last week and they didn't get any. And, you know, it's a great little pharmacy. And I know it's part of with Trata and stuff like that. So, I mean, what do we do if, and I'm on the list, but if these local pharmacies are getting it and now it's getting pulled back from them, how do we make sure that they continue to get it?
That's the $1,000,000 question, Anne. You know, the last we saw, the intention was for the federal government to take over distribution of the vaccines directly to the pharmacies. So maybe this is just a hiccup in that switch over. I know I had been in Larchmont Nurse Pharmacy a few weeks back, and I put out the information people could call and get on the wait list. And of course, now they're not even able to take additional names because they've got such a long list. Again, hopefully as the supply increases, that will change. And as the distribution directly to pharmacies from the federal government takes place, that will improve the situation. I would recommend, though, to anyone who's on the wait list, continue trying to call the state number and see if you can get an appointment at one of the large distribution centers.
I'd like to, excuse me, I'd like to wrap up our meeting because we're past our time. I have to say that since the questions are now devolving around COVID, that's going to be the topic of our next meeting on March 9th. So please tune in next month, come back on March 9th, and I think there will be many more questions answered, and perhaps in another month, a lot of things will have changed and the information will be even more updated to help everybody deal with this issue as well. So I want to thank all our elected officials, Nancy, Lorraine, and Tom, for your presentations today. Thank LMC TV for their work on presenting this for us. And thank you, Peggy, for your help too. So I hope I'll see all of you and maybe even more next month. And thank you again for attending our meeting.